about this product. I think this is a big step for the industry, for industrial use of drones. I think as we go through some of the details on the product, you'll agree with us that this is a big leap forward. And I think we've got a lot of exciting days ahead of us with equipment with capabilities like this. So we'll be covering those details and answering questions that you have. So today, to introduce our speakers, we have from Gresco, Alan Wheeler, who is the manager of our customer service for drone products. He's been with Gresco for 2 years now, and he's with me here today. And I am Rusty Ortiz, and I'm with Gresco. I have responsibility for training and business development around the drone products and their use. We also have joining with us from DJI, Francisco Toro, who has been with DJI for 6 years now. He's a solutions engineering manager at DJI. And Joyce Zhao, who has been at DJI for 2 years now, and she works in their after sales and service group as a key account manager there. So they're both joining us here today, and we'll be able to answer some of the questions. And since it's a new product, there's a lot of details, so we're happy to have them join us here to help answer everyone's questions. One of the recent DJI put together a timeline just showing a release of products, and it was very enlightening for us. And so we wanted to make sure that everybody got a chance to look at this and see how far that things have come in industrial drones in a short amount of time. I'm not sure if everyone's familiar with the Matrice 100 platform, but that was launched in 2015. So in the grand scheme of things, especially in industries that move slow, like the energy industry and the public safety industry, this has been 5 years, and today what we're looking at with the Matrice 300 is a complete revolution from where things were just 5 years ago with the Matrice 100, which was really a first industrialized type product, the first go at that. And I think one of the things that we see that within these industrial uses, when in the energy sector and in public safety, we're a creative bunch. And so we take technology from wherever we can get it and try to put it to work. And so we have had a history of taking, in the drone world, taking products that were meant for other purposes, meant to do videography work, and meant to do photography, and we see uses for that we can get value out of in our daily work. And so we're very creative at coming up with solutions, but it's really fascinating just from where we've started 5 years ago. First, the industry first stepping in with DJI releasing the Matrice 100 into this realm, and then the industrialized products that came from that. So the XT thermal camera, the collaboration of DJI and FLIR. The Z30 was a giant leap forward to have a stabilized zoom camera that can mount on a drone. And then the Matrice 600 Pro, which is much more of a stable platform of a large aircraft like that for carrying heavier payloads. And then it's amazing how far we've come just from the Matrice 200. And I think most people here will be familiar with its release back in 2017. So you see the continuing product line and rollout there with just this past year, the Matrice 200's version 2 coming out, the smaller compact Mavic 2 series coming out. There's been a lot of growth, but I think as we go through today, I think you'll agree with us that along this timeline, the Matrice 300 will be seen as a giant leap, and really a maturing of the technology to where there are specific use cases now being addressed where we're not having to be creative. The manufacturers are starting to come together and develop product that are very specific to use cases that we have a need for. So it's exciting just to see this knee in the curve of the industry's growth, and how this product fits in and is going to take us into the next phase. So I think we're growing up, coming of age in this industrial drone world. So with that, we'll we'll cover just a little bit of some of the the history of advancing the technology and the uses that the DJI has brought to the table. So if we think back, geofencing was not a common off-the-shelf, ready-to-go feature of most drones just a few years back. And DJI really pioneered a pathway to build that into drone platforms. And then for industrial users being able to unlock that. So that's been another need as geofencing has locked down drones. The ability to unlock has been something that DJI has made pathways for us to do that as well. Other things that help give flight limitations like the altitude limits, distances, the remote ID that's built into Aeroscope to be able to track drones based on their signatures. AirSense, being able to have an ADS-B receiver so that drone pilots can be aware of aircraft, of manned aviation aircraft in the airspace. Having that receiver built in with the interface to the remote controller and the app has been a big leap forward in safety. Then obstacle avoidance. If you think back, it's not been around that long as a commercially available off-the-shelf feature. It hasn't been that long since the Phantom 4 brought out obstacle avoidance just on the front side, and now we're looking at obstacle avoidance in all directions. So there's been major advancements, and I think we all recognize that DJI is by far the leader in the drone space, and they've been a driver for advancing the technology along the way too. So so it's neat to kind of review where we've been and how we got here, and the amount of ground that's covered so far. On the security side, having the data being password protected was a step along that path as well. Having servers based in the US, having local data mode added into the industrial platforms through the Pilot app. Flight Hub has been the ability to manage your fleet and your missions across your entire drone fleet has been a need that's been growing, and seeing the Flight Hub advance the way it has, and then also the encryption on the radio links is another added step along that path. So we've seen a lot of advancements from the days when people were grabbing Phantom 2 Vision Pluses and taking them out and doing line inspection or doing a reconstruction of an accident scene. So we've seen a maturing of all these products, and it's been exciting to be a part of it. We've had the ability to get our hands on a Matrice 300. Let's see. Oh, a second here. We've had a chance to do a little bit of testing, and we put a video together for just from our bit of testing with the Matrice 300 RTK demo unit that we have. So we're going to play that video now. In our testing, the video is kind of choppy coming through this webinar, but we've just pasted in the chat box a link to YouTube where we've got it posted there. So that'll stream a lot better for you. We're gonna play it here, but feel free to click on that link in YouTube. And if you're watching along, we've done some testing just around inspections and using the new camera, the Payload, the H20T. So we did a little bit of testing with this transmission structure, and it's very impressive the resolution that you have with a zoom camera with optical zoom. So got a little bit of demo in the video just showing that. There's also thermal that is built into the Payload that we'll be talking about that as well. But see some of that in the video. There's an example of a power plant, and from a great distance, the ability to zoom in and see equipment at the power plant in quite a bit of detail. So this is just some sample footage that we've been able to take ourselves, and you can just see how much the zoom range on the new Payload allows you to reach in. but you have that video as a reference, and that's up on YouTube, so you should be able to review that at your leisure. But we are going to dive in now and talk about the product itself, the aircraft, as well as the payloads, the new payloads that were released with the aircraft. There are 4 main areas that we're hoping to cover today. So the first one will be about the aircraft and the new features and specifications. And then we'll talk some about the safety reliability features that are built in. Then something that we feel is very impactful is the advances in software on the flight software side of things. So Francisco is going to take us through some of those features, and he's had a chance to use them and get familiar with them. We'll be doing some further testing, and we have another webinar that we'll be doing in 2 weeks that will cover some more of our testing on the software. But the hardware equipment features are very exciting and very enabling for our industries. But the software, I'd say, is even more exciting to us. The capabilities that are now on board to automate some of the flight and the data capture. Then we'll be talking some about just the platform and how the platform can be extended through the SDK and some of its open platform characteristics. So starting with the aircraft performance and specs, I'm gonna hand it over to Alan Wheeler, who's gonna take us from here.
Hey guys, thanks for joining us today, especially those of you on the West Coast. I know this is still kind of early for you, so grab your cup of coffee, and we're gonna dive into some fun facts here about the M300. So right off the bat, probably the biggest jump forward is going to be the flight time. So if you'll remember on the M200, I know most of us have been in that situation where you've got just a little bit more data you want to get, or a little bit further you need to fly, and you start getting that low battery warning, and we've all been asking for more flight time. So this time around, we got it. So we're looking at 55 minutes max flight time. Just to put that in perspective, that's a 140% increase from the M200. So 55 minutes sounds like a huge number, but let's keep in mind that is going to be with no payload, right? So you can still get some information off of your FPV camera. You can still get just some good information flying in general, but that's no payload. So let's talk a little more specifically about effective flight time. And what we mean by that is how much flight time you can actually get while still reserving about 7 minutes on the battery for landing, so that you're not landing, against your will out of the sky when you run out of battery. So looking at the effective flight time for the M210 RTK, if you were to have probably our most common setup, which is the XT2 and the Z30, you're looking at about 15 minutes of safe flight time, okay? With the M300 and the H20T, you're going to get about 36 minutes. So that's more than doubled. And you're looking at the same kind of data, because not only with HT20 or the H20T, I'm sorry, you're getting not only that visible camera with the zoom that you would get from the Z30, you're also getting the thermal that you would have gotten from your XT2. So that's a great increase there. And just to give you a few other numbers, if you wanted to fly with just a Z30 on the M300, then you're looking at about 45 minutes. If you wanted to do an H20 and an XT2, then you're looking at about 39. And if you wanted to max your payload out, which on this aircraft is about 6 pounds, then you're going to be looking around 30 minutes of flight time. So that's some great improvements over what we've seen in the past, and I'm really excited about that. So let's talk next about the batteries and about the battery station. So a big change for this one is not only do we have a new battery model, so it's the TB60, but we also have a new way of charging it. So in the past, we've had kind of smaller individual chargers, or with M200, we had kind of a 4 battery charging hub. But those, I've heard from some of our users, those are kind of weird when you're trying to use them in a vehicle. You hit a bump or something, and maybe your battery unlocks from the charger, and they're not that durable for on the road. So coming to the M300, we've got this great improvement with the BS60 battery charging station. So it comes in a nice rugged case. It's got wheels on it. It's got a handle. It's just a great product. So The TB60, the new battery, it's got some pretty impressive specs here. So we're looking at about 52.8 volts as compared to 22.8 with the TB55s. And you're looking at 274 watt hours, which is an improvement over the TB55 at 174 watt hours. So another change about this battery is it now has 12 cells. The TB55 had 6. And then the operating temperature stays the same. So you're looking at -4 Fahrenheit up to 122 Fahrenheit. So on the battery station, you're able to get 8 of the TB60s in there, as well as 4 of the WB37s or Crystal Sky batteries. And then you can charge, it's going to charge 2 of those at a time. And to get full capacity, if you're running on 220, you can get 60 minutes. But for most of us doing just standard household power on 110, it's going to be about 70 minutes to get 2 batteries up to full capacity. Or if you're in a hurry, you can get from 20% up to 90% on a couple batteries in about 40 minutes. And another thing I love about this battery station is that you can use your remote and plug in over USB to the battery station, and you can actually push the firmware updates to all 8 of these TB60s at the same time. So there's no more, swapping out battery sets to do all your updates on the aircraft, because that just takes a while. But here it's quick and simple. So let's move on to the OcuSync Enterprise Transmission System. So this is an improvement over OcuSync 2.0 that we saw on the M210. So the biggest change here is that you're going to see a 9.3 mile maximum transmission range. So I'm not suggesting you go out and fly 9.3 miles unless you have really, really, really good eyesight and you can keep that thing in line of sight, or you have a waiver for it. But you have that ability to do some more creative things with maybe handing off between 2 different controllers, handing off your control of the aircraft. So on the previous models, for example, the M210, it had about 5 miles. So we've got a great improvement here. And on that 9.3 miles, you're going to be getting 1080p, and you're also able to get 3 channels of video now. So in the past, we've been locked down to 2, so now you're able to get 3. So let's go on next to, so we're going to go on to talking about our weights here. So the max takeoff weight for the aircraft is 19.8 pounds, and like we talked about, the payload capacity is up to 6. And then you've also got some different options here for the cameras. So you've got your H20 series and your Z30, which are probably going to be the big ones for us. And you've also got the XT2. If you've already got one of those and want to use that on this aircraft, you can. And for anybody overseas, there's also an XTS available, but unfortunately that's not here in the North American market. So that's what you see on the top of it there. So different configurations you can do. It's going to come standard with a single downward gimbal, but you can also purchase an accessory, which is the dual downward gimbal, to put 2 on it. And you can purchase the upward single gimbal as well if you need to do some bridge inspections or anything else where you might need to look up. And then Francisco is going to get into this a little bit later, but there are several third-party payloads that are available. Some available now, some of them are in development. So we'll let Francisco get into that in just a little bit. All right, so this new camera is pretty much amazing for the little bit of time I've been able to spend using it. So it's a hybrid sensor payload, and let me kind of get into that language a little bit for you. So hybrid sensor just means that you're going to have multiple sensors within the same camera body. Okay, so on one gimbal, one camera body, you're going to be able to access, in the case of the H20, you're going to be able to access 3 different sensors. So you've got your zoom, which is going to be that bigger lens right there in the middle. You've got a wide angle or a fixed lens, which is going to be the smaller one on the bottom right. And then you've got your laser rangefinder, which is going to be on the bottom left there. And then when you get over to the H20T, kind of rearrange things a little bit. You've got your zoom on the bottom right. You've got your wide angle kind of top center, your laser rangefinder top left, and then it adds a thermal sensor on the bottom left. So big things about the zoom camera. Those of us that have used the Z30, we know that it's great for live inspection. You can you can get in really deep with that 30 times zoom. But what it's lacking is the resolution for still images, right? So you take a still image with a Z30, it's just over 2 megapixels, and things start to look fuzzy real fast, right? So with this guy, they bumped it up to 20 megapixels. So that is a fantastic resolution, especially zooming in as far as it does. So the focal length on this guy is 31.7 to 556 millimeters. So that's going to give you effectively on just that zoom lens, and we'll come back to this in just a second, but that's going to give you about 17 times zoom, okay? So there's more possibilities on the zoom. We'll get to that in just a minute. But you can also, on this guy, you can also get a little bit, I'm not going to call it night vision, right? But you can get a little bit of low light vision, okay? So night scene, and they're doing an IR cut. So it gives you a little bit of flexibility there in those low light situations. So moving on to the thermal camera, there's some great resolution here. It's 640 by 512. It's going to sound really familiar to those of you using the XT2 or even the XT, and a 30 frames per second frame rate. So on the laser rangefinder, I've really enjoyed this guy. So when you turn this thing on, it puts basically a red crosshair in the middle of the screen, right? And whatever you're pointing it at, it's going to give you a readout for how far away that is. The reason I love that is that I am terrible at estimating my distance from the aircraft to whatever I'm looking at. I could be standing right under it and I'm still terrible at guessing that. So this gives you a great situational awareness piece when you're doing your inspections to be able to keep you safe. And moving on to the wide camera, you've got 12 megapixels here and your focal length is 24 millimeters. So when you combine the wide camera and the zoom camera, you get 23 times zoom capabilities. So like you saw in the video earlier, you're still able to get in really deep with that zoom and able to get a lot of good data from it. All right, so with this payload, they have redone the user interface quite a bit, and it's become a lot more intuitive, at least from my opinion. So a few things I'm going to point out just specific to the payload. I want to point out on the left-hand side here, you're going to see IR and zoom, and you'll see that kind of switch between wide and zoom or IR and wide. Those are your different options for your cameras, right? So in the top center, you're going to see where it tells you what you're currently looking at. So here in just a second, you'll see it says wide up there. So that was currently looking at the wide camera, and your other two options are on the left. Then you've also got, for your zoom, on the right-hand side, you've got your standard zoom wheel, or if you like more of a tactile feel, it comes, I think the remote comes with it defaulted on the 5-function button just above the screen, where you can push forward for it to zoom in or back for it to zoom out. Some other things to look at here, you've got the options up top to turn on the rangefinder. And then the thing I love the most about this interface is that right there where it puts that green box on that says 20 times, that box is telling you what your zoom camera is looking at, and it's telling you how zoomed in you are. So you can easily jump back and forth between your wide angle and your zoom. So I know a lot of times in the past when I've been using, let's say the XT2, and I've wanted to zoom in, I couldn't, right? So I'd switch over to my Z30, but then I lose a little bit of awareness because I'm really zoomed in on the Z30 and I don't necessarily know what's around. So on this guy, you've got the ability to back out to your wide with just a quick press of a button, and you can see exactly on the screen what you're zoomed in on, what area you're zoomed in on, and then you can jump to that zoom to get in close and see what you need to. So just to kind of wrap up here on the specs, your diagonal length is 895 millimeters, so it's a little bigger than the M210. It's a little taller as well, but nothing too cumbersome. And I love the way this thing folds up. So the arms both fold to the side and in. And unlike the M210, you leave the propellers on. So they're now mounted on with screws as opposed to just a twist and lock, and they fold in half. So you leave them on, fold the arms in, and this thing is nice and compact for you. So your weight is about 13.8 pounds, and your max takeoff weight is 19.8. So that gives you that 6-pound payload capacity. Max flight time, 55 minutes. And again, that's without a payload. Max speed is 51 miles, and then ascent and descent 13 miles per hour and 11 miles per hour. So another big one here is your max wind resistance is 33 miles per hour. So this aircraft has some weight to it, which is great. It gives it the ability to withstand a lot more wind. And these props, they are fantastic, man. Like I haven't had any problems with the wind with these guys. So then payloads. So you've got the options we're going to talk about here. You've got the H20 series. So that's the H20 and the H20T. You got the Z30, the XT2, and then for any of you overseas, you got the XTS as well. Ingress protection is IP45. And I've seen videos of this thing being sprayed with water from every direction. I've heard about people using pressure washers on these things when they're in the air. This dude is just rock solid. Operating temperatures stayed the same, -4 to 122, and then of course that 9.3 mile transmission distance. And then one more thing on this slide, we'll go over this a little bit more later, but I just want to point out there's a new controller for this guy. It's the Smart Controller Enterprise. So some of you have used the Smart Controller on the Mavic 2 series already, and it is a very similar interface. There's a few more options now, and you'll see that a little later.
Great. Thank you, Alan. We're going to jump into the second section here, and again, if anybody has questions, go ahead and send those into the chat box, and we'll address those at the end. But go ahead and submit them as you come up with questions. One of the improvements to this platform that we're excited about is the obstacle avoidance is much improved. And I think one of the first things you notice when you look at the aircraft is like different type of configuration where you see the arms and the propellers are underhung, but the arms are down below the body with kind of a large hull that's sitting up on top. And the reason for that is up at the top of the hull, if you look around the perimeter of it, there are obstacle avoidance sensors all the way around. So now we're getting full 360-degree obstacle avoidance. There, of course, are gaps and blind spots, you know. So, but there is in all directions there obstacle avoidance built in. There's also obstacle avoidance going in the upward direction and the downward direction. So there are 6 sides of obstacle avoidance sensors. And so that's part of the design of the aircraft is designing those where they're not being obstructed by the arms and the props. The sensors on this can, the range is up to 130 feet now. So as far as detecting obstacles, it does have quite a bit of reach. And then you can set how you would like the aircraft to respond to that. There are different settings where you can say at a certain point you'd like to have a notification and it'll make a beeping sound. If you get an object within a certain distance, you can set what that distance is. Also, you can set where you want the aircraft to start braking, where it'll stop flying if an obstacle is within a certain distance, and that's a settable distance as well. There are also built in, just like on the Matrice 200 series, the version 2s, there are anti-collision beacons that are mounted, one on top and one on bottom. So those are strobe lights that are part of just being able to keep visibility of the aircraft as it's flying, and then also as a part of being able to identify the aircraft if you are flying under a waiver to fly at nighttime. So that's built into the aircraft and can be turned on and off easily through the interface. And then there are auxiliary lights that are built in, pretty bright LEDs on the top and bottom that illuminate upward and downward if you are doing nighttime flying. The ingress protection is improved. If everybody remembers the Matrice 200, that was really exciting, having a drone that had an ingress protection rating at all. It was neat to see that being designed into this industrial equipment, and that was a IP43 rating. So the if you're not familiar with the ingress protection ratings, the first number is about particulates, so kind of dust particles, dirt particles, and then the higher the number, the more protection it has. So and then the second number is on moisture ingress protection. And so it was quite an increase on the moisture ingress protection on this aircraft. See the payloads, you can also see it's got an IP44 rating, so also very good and much improved over previous payloads. See, as a part of this and trying to keep the body rugged and and safe from the elements, the electronic speed controls, the ESCs, are now located safely in the hull of the aircraft instead of out on the arms. And so there's a airflow design, to cool those off. That's based on an external airflow. And just as far as the amount of rain, if you want to, just in metrics, so 4 inches per 24 hours is kind of the amount of rainfall that was tested under in the laboratory environment. So just to give everybody a perspective of when those tests were done, how much rainfall was coming at that time. One of the things that we like a lot that's built into really the software user interface for this aircraft is a lot of the items that were buried in menus in the apps, in the flight apps, have now got their own space that's in what's called the health management system for the aircraft. So just with a quick button, you can go see the status of a lot of different areas of health for the aircraft. So in there's if there are any firmware issues, any kind of warnings about the flight area, if you're in a zone that has warnings or no-fly zones, that the firmware compatibility, the onboard compass and IMU settings, if they are in a good or a good state or not, all that is on one interface screen, and with a quick glance, you can see color-coded each of 6 different categories of health. Also, any kind of the error logs and troubleshootings built into the same area. So everything to do with the health and status of your aircraft are built right into the controller interface, and they have their own area. So this has been very handy already. We can see this is a much better layout and design. And I see a question came in from Chuck on, is it possible to use 2 controllers? Can you do a pilot and a camera operator configuration like we've done on a lot of other platforms before? And the answer is yes, you can, and more. So we'll be talking some about that here in a little bit. But yes, absolutely, you can use more than one controller, and there's some new capabilities that have come along with this aircraft and controller set. So like before, there in the Matrice 300 platform, there's redundancy built into the sensor systems. So the inertial measurement unit, there are 2 of those, same on barometer, same on compass, same on the RTK. The antennas are built into the back of the arms. You can't see them in this picture, but the 2 GPS, RTK GPS antennas, there's a redundancy there. And then as far as the GNSS receiver module, that's got redundancy as well. So this is, we saw a lot of redundancy built into the Matrice 600 platform, also in the Matrice 200 series. We see that carried over here in the Matrice 300. Here is where we're going to talk about a little bit about this new controller, this Smart Controller Enterprise. Now with these 2 controllers, not only can you have a pilot controller and a payload operator controller, camera operator controller, now you can actually switch back and forth in flight between 2 controllers of who's pilot. So the second controller, that second operator, can take over control of the drone if it's given. So there's permissions and ability to pass that from one controller to the other. And that's based on a fundamental design change where the controllers are now connecting, both controllers are connecting direct to the aircraft. So the radio link is between controller to aircraft, where previously the primary remote would be connected directly to the aircraft, and all communication to the aircraft is going through that primary remote. And a secondary remote, the payload operator, camera operator remote, would be connected to the first remote, the primary. In this case, this new design, the controllers are connecting directly to the aircraft both controllers are, so they can switch roles mid-flight. And this opens up some neat opportunities with proper waivers and procedures in place. You can imagine being able to fly where one operator can take it to the extent of their line of sight, and then with the technical capability to pass that to another pilot that can take it and take the mission on from there. That's a very exciting feature that I know that we've had plenty of questions from our operators, our users, asking for that function if that was possible, and it is now. Another thing about it does fly with 2 batteries, just like the Matrice 200 series did, but a very important distinction here is with these 2 batteries, they are hot swappable. So not only, so you have 2 batteries here, so if one fails, the other can keep the flight up and flying safely until you can land safely. But these are hot swappable batteries as well. So this is an incredible video. I'm hoping that it'll come through well through the webinar. But there is a new feature built in to the aircraft where if you were to lose one of the motors or one of the propellers on this aircraft, we've all known on a quadcopter, that's instant death. That aircraft turns into a big heavy rock real fast and comes straight down. In this case, there are some really intelligent flight controller components that are built in where if you were to lose one of your propellers, the system will correct that. And though it's in a spin, it will be a controlled spin. We'll see if we can get this to play. You see, they disabled one of the motors and the aircraft rolled over like it normally would, but then it regained control and now it's in a spin, but it's a controlled spin, and the operator through the remote controller sticks can still guide the aircraft down to a spot to land it safely. So this is an amazing, amazing feature, technical feat to be able to pull this off. I've seen this on some demos of smaller aircraft, but nothing as large as the M300 is. But it's amazing just seeing this built in and readily available right off the shelf this way. The first-person view FPV camera that's built into the aircraft, it's an extra wide view lens, which a lot of operators will agree that that's a benefit. It gives a lot better situational awareness to have a wide-angle lens there. One of the things to note is with the Matrice 200 series, that camera, that first-person view pilot camera, was on a gimbal itself. It was on a 2-axis gimbal. This is not. It's a fixed lens, but it's a wide angle, so you get a lot better awareness overall through it. So we like the view that comes from that FPV camera, from the little that we've been able to use it so far. See, we just answered a question there. All right. One last thing is it does have the ADS-B receiver, just like we saw in the Matrice 200 series. So you can monitor as a pilot, drone pilot, the manned aviation, manned aircraft in your area. You'll get a notice, and that'll pop up on your user interface to give you a warning that there's an aircraft coming around. And it picks up aircraft within a 12-mile radius. It does not transmit out ADS-B, so manned aircraft pilots do not see the drone in their system, but it's a receiver, so the drone pilot can be situationally aware of any manned aircraft. So with that, all of that's really exciting. It's really exciting to see these major advancements that the industry has asked a lot about these features, and it's really great having a manufacturer build these in and design these into the products that we'll be able to use. But I would say for myself, even more than that, it's even more exciting seeing where the software side of things have gone. So, I see one more question coming in. Can you move the platform laterally while you're in that spin? And yes, you can. That's the amazing thing. From your stick controls, you can actually move the aircraft. You can move it around side to side, and you have control of that, which means that flight controller is doing some amazing math to be able to make up for that spin that it's in. So yes, you can. So with this, I'm going to pass it over to Francisco, and he's going to talk some about these new advanced intelligence software components that are built in for and monitoring purposes. Francisco?
Sounds good. Thanks, guys. So yeah, we're going to talk about the advanced intelligence features here. So we're going to start off with pinpoints, move over to smart track, and then locations sharing. So the first one is called pinpoint. And with this new feature, you can mark objects of interest through the user interface. So at the top, you'll see RNG. Next to that is the pinpoint marker. You can pinpoint an object through that, or you can do it through the map user interface as well to easily pinpoint something. So here you can see that as we're flying, that marked object that's been pinpointed will remain in that same location. So as you're flying, you'll always know where it's located relative to the drone, and also you can see it in real time on the map. So this is a cool new feature we hope that our users will utilize, whether it's in energy or public safety, and I'm sure we'll find some great applications for this. The next one we have is Smart Track. So similar to Active Track with our drones, it can automatically track objects. So here you'll see vehicles are automatically detected. So a yellow circle will go around the vehicle, and then the user can select any of those, and it'll begin tracking just like you see here. So it takes another level. It takes it to another level compared to Active Track, because here not only are we tracking the vehicle, but we can also automatically zoom to keep the vehicle in frame. And then we take it to the next level with that laser rangefinder. You can see it in the map UI on the bottom left corner to see where that object is. And as it's moving, we can track the coordinates as well. So you can see a real-time tracking system with this new Smart Track feature. And finally, we have location sharing. So this will be available at a later time, but essentially when you're using either pinpoint or smart track, you'll be able to share that the live feed and also the location of whatever you've pinpointed or your smart tracking through the DJI Flight Hub software. Okay, so now we're going to talk about smart inspection. So smart inspection is made up of these three subcomponents. So we have Waypoint 2.0, live mission recording, and AI spot check. So we'll talk about more of these in depth within the next few slides. So the first one is Waypoint 2.0. So previously, Waypoint 1.0 only had up to 99 waypoints that were supported. With this new Waypoint 2.0, we have up to 65,535. And this supports bank turns and more dynamic flight routes. This is also flexible because we have POI support. It also supports multiple payloads, and we offer multiple consecutive actions. And finally, this is going to be available to third-party payloads via the Payload SDK, and this will also support the mobile SDK and onboard SDK. So here we have live mission recording. So this is an easier way of creating a flight route. Previously, in the past, you'd have to fly your drone, take note of where your gimbal is pointing, and do that in it was a fairly manual process. But now you can just fly your drone, and by simply taking a picture, it'll recognize the drone's position, the gimbal's orientation, and the position, and automatically record that as you're flying. So we feel like this is a much easier way to create automated missions. You could still do the other route as well if you'd like, if you're not in the field, but in terms of workflow, this is much faster. So finally, we have AI spot check. So this is the final piece of the puzzle for smart inspection. So with AI spot check, once you've completed your mission and you've taken your pictures, you can go into each picture and annotate the part or object that you want to focus on. That way, the next time you fly the same mission, the drone will automatically when it's pointing the gimbal in that direction, it'll look for the object that you annotate. And we found this to be very, very precise. So when compared to like a person, when I was flying this, for example, I found that this is actually, it was taking pictures much better than I was. So we're hoping this can help deliver accurate and consistent results for our users. Okay, and here we have high-res grid photo. So this allows the user to capture a set of high-resolution photos with a single click. And what this is doing is you'll see that here when you get into the high-res grid photo mode, the user defines the area that they would like to select. And depending on how zoomed in they are, they can get more tiny squares and therefore getting more pictures and higher fidelity in each picture. So the more you zoom in, the more sub pictures you'll get. But in any case, what this is doing is taking multiple pictures, as you see here, and it's also using the wide angle camera to take a picture of the larger object. So that way, when you're looking at this in post, you'll get a live big view picture from the wide camera, and then you'll get the little squares so you can see, you'll know which part you're looking at of the whole tower in this case. So we're hoping that this will help our users capture the structures, and also they'll know what part they're looking at as they're looking through each picture. Awesome. So here we have the primary flight display. So one thing I'd like to note is that this is the view that you'll get in the first-person view camera. Okay. So for those of you that are from the manned aviation industry, this should look fairly familiar. So I'll just go through each subcomponent here. So in the middle, we have the horizon and flight path vector. So that horizon's the aircraft's horizon. So you'll be able to tell, for example, if it's a windy day, you can tell because of the orientation that's in. And then you also have the flight path vector. So depending on the joystick inputs, you'll be able to see which direction the drone is flying due to the pilot's input. And then on the left bottom part of that, we have the horizontal speed indicator. So this will tell you the horizontal speed of the drone. And lower to that, we have the wind speed and wind direction. So now, due to popular demand, a lot of our users told us that this is a feature that they wanted. So we've added this in here for their reference as well. So this is the wind speed and direction that the drone is experiencing in flight. We all know that, the wind speed on the ground is much different than the wind speed 400 or 200 feet above ground. So now you'll be able to know what type of wind forces the drone is experiencing. Next to that, we have the vertical obstacle indicator at the very top right. And that's kind of telling you where, like, what objects are close to the drone. So whether it's on the top or on the bottom. And then next to that, we have the altitude indicator. So this gives you the height of the drone. Below that, we have the vertical speed and absolute altitude as well. That way you can tell if your drone if you're going up or down, you'll get the exact speed. And then on the bottom right corner, you have the Zenmuse H20T. That's just the payload gimbal camera view. And then in the middle, we have the navigation display. So, again, depending on the user-defined range for the obstacle avoidance sensor, you'll get some information there as well. And you also have the compass, so you can get your north heading. You have the yellow arrow at the top. That's the gimbal orientation. So if you have multiple gimbals, let's say 3, you'll get 3 different arrows pointing in 3 different directions. On the compass, you'll know in which direction each one is pointing. And then we have the return to home. On the bottom, you see the distance. So that's the return to home distance from the drone. Previously, depending on your return to home altitude, you also get that as well. So in the altitude indicator on the right side, you'll see RTH, and that's the RTH setting that the user has defined for the return to home. So as you can see, this primary flight display, it has a lot of information. So it'll get some time to get used to, but we're hoping that this could be a great benefit to our users when using this FPV camera. Okay, so here we have the advanced dual control. So we've already kind of touched up on this, so I'll just kind of elaborate here. But essentially, this allows the pilot now to give control of the aircraft to a second operator, and that can also be locked. So if the pilot in command does not want to allow anyone to take control, they can lock it. So he will only have control at that point. And just as was previously mentioned, you could essentially expand your range. So 9.3 miles is already a lot, but let's say you were flying a bridge, as previously mentioned, you can fly halfway through. Second operator could take control of that and then land at a different location. And this is also great for helping pilots learn how to fly this. So you could use this to train. And you know, obviously, if you have a very expensive gimbal, a very expensive drone, you'd want to teach your pilots how to fly this safely first. And of course, we have the traditional pilot and co-pilot mode so that one person could be dedicated to flying the drone and the second person could be dedicated to just operating the gimbal camera. So I do want to note that this connection between the two controllers, there's no like master and slave connection like in the past where the second, we'll call it the slave controller, would be connected to the master controller, which would then be connected to the drone. They're both directly connected to the drone, which is why you could take control of the aircraft, and also which is why if in a sense you could extend your range. So as long as both controllers have been connected to the drone, if the first operator turns on his controller, he's flying, second operator later turns on his controller, he can get that same video downlink that the first operator has. And this would be, you know, depending on what industry you're in, it could be beneficial for like public safety, for example. You could get an HDMI out to a larger monitor, or maybe you have your energy, set up in a similar fashion. So yeah, that's the advanced dual control. Let's see. Yeah.
Great. Thank you, Francisco. I think we're going to next. And so he's going to talk a little bit more here about the platform itself, and about how the openness and some of the third-party activity that's going on.
Yeah, so here we have the mobile SDK, onboard SDK, and payload SDK. So just like with our other drones, the mobile SDK is supported with the M300 series, so you can use your favorite third-party software. We just released the newest version of the mobile SDK, so you should see more third-party developers update their software with this. And then again, you'll be able to use this with the M300. And of course, we have the Manifold 2, which is supported with with the new updated onboard SDK for the M300 RTK, so you could use that as well. And finally, we have Payload SDK, which is supported with the M300 as well. So here we have some examples of third-party payload SDKs. Many of you may be familiar with the Wingsland Z15 Spotlight, which we have available. And this, again, because of the new update with the Payload SDK, you can use this with your M300. And here we have some other sensors. So one of the main questions that we get with the M300 is, you know, does this have a mapping camera? So as many of you know, the H20 and H20T is not designed for mapping. However, we will have the 5-lens camera payload coming at a later date. So this will be able to do both oblique and anterior images in one go. And then we also have the laser methane telemeter. So this is known as the U10. We currently have this out right now. And a lot of these other payload SDKs are still either in development or going through the certification process for the United States. So, you know, as we hear more throughout the coming weeks, there should be more information available. But for now, we just kind of wanted to show you this, all of the new payloads coming out later this year. Here are just some numbers for your information about the registered SDK developers, active SDK developers, and how many applications were published. So overall, we're a growing little ecosystem, and yeah, we should be getting some more with the M300 as well.
Great, thank you, Francisco. And DJI did a couple of case studies with the Matrice 300, taking it out into industry, and one of them was in the the energy industry and with Valmont. So I think those of us that are from the electric industry background, we're all familiar with Valmont. They do routinely do inspections of poles. And so Francisco has some familiarity with them and has worked with them in the past, and he's going to talk some about the case study that was done with the N300 and Valmont.
Yeah, so Valmont has been using drones to help inspect and maintain their structure towers. So we were happy to work with them as one of the early beta testers with the M300 RTK. And overall, they were very happy to use this, and it proved to be more efficient for their operations. Yeah, and it increased productivity. So in the next slide, we'll kind of talk about what key features they really liked about the M300. So the first one was the high-res grid photo. They really liked that you could get the whole wide camera picture, and also you can get the little subcomponents inside. And in the past, they were using the Z30 with the 2-megapixel sensor, which was, it wasn't the best, but it had a very good optical zoom capability. But now with the new H20 series, we have the 20 megapixel sensor, and this has the 23 times optical zoom. So as you can imagine, they were thrilled because now in post they got a very, very high quality image, and they didn't have to get as close to their structures to get the same type of high quality image in the past. So they were very happy with this. And additionally, they really like the fact that the controller has the WB37 battery support. So that's the Crystal Sky batteries that we're all familiar with. So you can, as you're flying your drone, you can fly for much longer extended periods of times, because now you could charge while you're using your controller. This also is the case with the hot swappable batteries of the drone. So they're utilizing the RTK system, which in the past, if you're familiar with it, you have to, if you want to change your batteries, you have to turn off the drone, turn it back on, wait to get RTK signal, and then you can continue flying. So this greatly increased their productivity because they could just hot swap, keep the drone on, keep the settings on, and then they're ready to go. And obviously, they really liked AI spot check for the repeatable missions and to capture the same data for the same structure. So overall, I believe Valmont was very happy based on our discussion with them. And yeah, they really like the M300 RTK for their inspection use cases.
Awesome. Thank you, Francisco. So I know we're getting pretty close to time here. We've got just a couple more slides we want to share with you. Being in the service center here at Gresco, one of the things that I appreciate the most about this aircraft and about DJI service offerings in general is that they're beginning to offer a maintenance service. So we've asked Joyce from DJI Service Center to come on and kind of share some of that with us. So Joyce, will you tell us about this new program?
Yes, of course. Thank you. So as you are knowing, for us to better service and maintain the aircraft performance, so the service side from DJI actually launched this maintenance service this year. So as you can see, we can enhance the efficiency and also security and improve record keeping by having the maintenance service. So I'm gonna talk a little bit more on the maintenance here. So as you can see from the screen, we do have recommend times life cycle for doing the maintenance. So the basic service is suggested to be performed at 6 months or up to 400 total flight time. And then after that, for 12 months or 400 total flight time, we recommend a standard service. And then later on in 18 months or up to 600 total flight times, we recommend the premium service. So the maintenance check is either for months or the flight time, whichever comes first. So under the basic service, what coming with it is actually a deep cleaning, including the aircraft as well as gimbal and camera. And then also parts inspection and any system or firmware upgrade or calibration if needed. Okay, and then with standard service, what's being added besides deep cleaning, parts inspection and upgrade and calibration is we're gonna change any easily worn out parts. Okay, and then when it comes to the premium service, besides deep cleaning, parts inspection, upgrade, calibration, and then easy worn out parts replacement, we will change the core components part. Just give a little bit of details regarding M300. So for M300, in the standard maintenance, what easily worn out parts gonna be changed will be the aircraft upper shell module, the front cover of battery components, landing gear connector, propeller, battery locker module, and then also the gimbal rubber damper. Okay. So with the premium program, premium service, what else gonna be added towards the core component is the motor. So motor gonna be changed, and also we're gonna change the SDR antenna base as well as the motor cover module as well. So that's some a little bit details on the easily worn out parts. So in terms of upgrade and calibration, what we're gonna do on the unit is gonna be IMU calibration, and then compass calibration, single motor test, and then the vision sensor calibration. And also we're gonna cover the accessory as well. So the remote controller firmware upgrade, and also the aircraft and the battery components firmware upgrade gonna be also included in the service. All right, and then after each service, we're gonna provide a report as well. So you will be able to download and then get one after the service. All right. Okay, so besides the maintenance program we have for M300, we also have the basic service which come in with the unit, the M300. So each M300 will come in with an enterprise shield basic that will covers 2 replacement in 1 year, and also it covers any water damage to the unit as well. And then with the shield program, you will receive, DJI will cover both ways shipping, and also the 2 replacement is actually able to extend if you want to do a renew version of it. So enterprise basic renew is available as well right now. So it gives you another year with another 2 replacement opportunity to the unit. So if you have more than 1 fleet, more than 1 aircraft want to be covered in the program, we do have another program called Enterprise Plus, that where you can sharing the repair credit with among the whole fleet, and then you can use them, use the unlimited replacement repair within 1 year. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Josh.
No problem.
So, guys, that's all the slides that we have. I just want to tell you, we've got another upcoming webinar on Tuesday, June 3rd at 11 a.m. time. So keep an eye out for an invitation for that if you haven't gotten it yet. And in that webinar, we're going to get a little more hands-on with M300, and we're going to go through some of those advanced intelligence features that Francisco shared with us in mission planning, as far as including the inspections. So look forward to that, and we're going to do some Q&A. So if you have any questions still lingering, put those in the chat box, and then Rusty and Francisco are going to go through those.
Great. Thank you, Alan. And Francisco, it looks like we've gotten a couple questions that have come in so far. Let's see. One of the questions is with the security questions around Chinese security issues, can we update and operate the aircraft off network?
Gotcha. So yeah, For operating, you can do that. We have some articles online on best practices if you want to be completely off the network, mainly to do with your mobile device. So that's doable. For updating, you'll have to connect to either the DJI System 2 software or update through the Pilot application. So you cannot do that offline.
Great, thank you. And then the question, can the dual control be retrofitted to M210 or M600? I believe the answer to that is no, that was a hardware change. Is that correct, Francisco?
Yeah, that's right. So this has a new transmission system called OcuSync Enterprise, and that is not cross-compatible with the M200 or M600 series.
Great, thanks for that. Then a question, and we didn't address this, we should have, as far as the compatible payloads. What you saw on the screen were the compatible payloads for the M300. And then there's the third-party payloads that are on their way. But as the question is about the X5S or the X7 as a payload, and those right now are not compatible with the M300. And I think if you guys are familiar with X5S cameras or X7s, that they utilize the onboard video processing that's part of the Matrice 200 series. That's not part of the M300 series. So right now, the payloads themselves are doing the onboard image processing. So those are not compatible. And then a question about the RTK system, and just can we go over some details on the RTK GNSS system? So, and then a question about the RTK corrections. Can we cover RTK corrections? Francisco, can you?
Yeah. So similar to the M200 V1 and V2 series, you will get real-time RTK corrections utilizing the RTK2. So if you're flying near strong magnetic fields or other pieces of metal that might interrupt the compass or affect the compass, you could utilize the RTK system to fly safely in those environments.
Okay. Great, thanks. See, as far there was a question that came in to ask when do these ship, and we do have these in stock. So it's a we were waiting for a little while to get the batteries shipped in, but we have those now. So so this is aircraft that we have in stock as of today. So again, you can reach out and ask any questions on the product and pricing to us at that phone number or email address, the UAS@gresco.com. I think we've covered the questions that are on here, and so yep, we'll be having the part 2 of this in 2 weeks. So look forward to talking to everybody then and having some more information to share. Thank you for joining us, and any further questions that you have, please reach out to us, and we'll be happy to get those answered, and we'll work with DJI's enterprise team to make sure we get you the answers you're looking for. So with that, we'll be signing off. Thanks everybody for joining, and we will talk to you later. Have a good day.
Thanks all.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.